And now to our next interviewee and next presenter or next presentation on how trust and user preference go hand in hand and online. I guess from London, we have Felipe Iregi. Hi.
Correct. Hi, Peter. How are you? By the way, great pronunciation of the last name.
Hablo un poco español, no mucho, pero...
Makes sense.
That's good. So you're coming in from London, aren't you?
Correct. Yes, I'm connecting from London.
Okay. And I mean, I don't want to talk about the weather with all the guests, but basically we have a very warm winter here, no snow or ice or nothing at all. So I hope spring is soon lurking behind the corner in London as well.
Absolutely. Actually, we can't complain this year. It's been cold, -2, but with beautiful sunny weather as of today. So actually, London has been having great weather this winter. I hope it lasts.
Okay, that's good and interesting. It's warmer here, so but it's one of these things. Hey, Felipe, lately it seems although data privacy infringement fines have taken over the headlines, does this come as a shock?
Absolutely not, Peter. I think that with everything related to regulation starts first. Then comes adoption by businesses and companies that are impacted by regulation, and then regulators catch up, right? And enforcement, we've seen enforcement already happen with the big brands at the very high level. Now we've seen enforcement increase in the second category of businesses, and we only believe that this will continue to increase in the next couple of years. So no surprise at all.
All right. Interesting. Hey, talking about human behavior, trust, and brand image, they play such a large role. Has this grown over the years?
Absolutely. So I think this is where it's fascinating for us, because we are in the data privacy space, right? And one of the factors that affects data privacy is trust. I'll talk about that in a bit. But the interesting thing is that trust is very much personal. It's a trait out of human behavior. And because of this characteristic, it's crazy how it can disproportionately affect the business relating data privacy.
Hey, good and eager to hear more with your presentation. So now, Felipe, it's your stage on how trust and user preference go hand in hand.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Perfect. Thank you, Peter. So today I'll talk about how trust and user preferences go hand in hand. First, a little bit about Usercentrics. So we are a global data privacy platform that focuses on control and compliance. We were founded in 2012. That's right. If you're familiar with GDPR, that's 6 years before GDPR was ever a thing. As of today, we're used in more than 900,000 websites across the world, and we manage a crazy, staggering amount of users' consents per day. This is 16 billion users, active consented users per day. This is across a company that we have 220 employees. So we're half Danish, half German. And our mission is really to help businesses and brands and e-commerce businesses like you to learn and navigate the complexities about data privacy and the impact that it can have in those businesses. Now, let's get right to it. So we did a study within Usercentrics. As I told you, we've been since 2012, and we've identified that there's 3 main drivers that are changing the digital landscape for e-commerce businesses. So the first one, I think it's clear, is more straightforward, is regulatory changes. New regulation comes into place. Businesses need to comply and to adapt with that regulation in order to be compliant. Second, we have technology changes. Technology changes are more related to that idea of which is the dominant technology that is popular in the world and how businesses will implement that technology in order to keep par. Think about cookies in the past, right? How cookies became the dominant technology for anything related to analytics and tracking and marketing. And think about something more present as the ChatGPT, that it's becoming very much more present within, let's say, like the common understanding. And it's poised to be one of those technologies that may change the world in the next couple of years. And lastly, we have the one that's very interesting, and that's user expectations. And when we say user expectations, I mean specifically about the idea of trust and how we've seen that there is an impact of trust in how users interact and consume digital products. Now, the other thing that we've seen as well is even though there can be regulatory changes, technology changes, user expectations, and trust impacting a digital business, we've seen as well that both consent and the concept of consent and the control of it are here to stay. Change regulation, change technology, increase trust. There is an even more increasing need for users to be asked about which type of data, which level of privacy they want, and for businesses to maintain and keep that promise of trust that they establish with that particular user. Now, why is this important for e-commerce businesses? So, from a first instance, think about marketing campaigns, and the studies that we've done so far led us to understand that a poorly implemented consent management platform can lead to 70% less data flow to your business and to your analytics, impacting your return of ad spend. This one is pretty straightforward, right? Think about a site that is a site with a poorly implemented CMP, no data or low quality of data is flowing in, less site-centric, ad-centric conversions are collected, which means that you're impacting your conversions. You have less data to supply your smart bidding strategies, you have an impact on bidding, and then you have less signals collected for retargeting activities. That's impact on audiences. You sum all this up, what you have is you have a higher cost of acquiring new users, which impacts directly your return of ad spend. Now, moreover on this, the other very interesting thing that we learned was Google did recently published in the last 6 months a study called Privacy by Design, where they were releasing some of their studies that they did regarding privacy and within privacy, marketing, ad spend within the digital environment. What they found we thought was absolutely fascinating because what you're seeing here on the graph is a show on what are the two most important things or aspects that can impact brand trustedness at this moment. And the interesting thing here is that we see that it's minus 45% if there's a data breach and minus 35% if there's a poor privacy practices in place. So a data breach, which has the consequences of that data being released somewhere that feels that for a user can feel very vulnerable, it's the same as the entry point of a poor privacy experience. And this is what we think is fascinating, right? And this is what I was mentioning around human behavior, because there is a disproportionality around these two events, but in the eyes of users, they're the same. So this is what I'll deep dive in a bit. So now we have the regulation challenges, we have the technology challenges, and we have the user trust challenges. As e-commerce businesses, if you're able to solve all these challenges, then you would be able to be in a world where you are privacy first, working and being ahead of the curve, being ahead of your competitors in terms of data privacy and the user and the trust that comes from users. And here's a very cheeky wordplay, right? Like we say here in the UK regarding privacy, but privacy is truly a user-centric challenge. What this means is, and we've seen it from other companies that try to game either their privacy settings, their privacy consent, their privacy technologies in order to get consent. Once a user has identified or recognized that this has happened, that's the end of that relationship, right? So it has to be something that is very focused on users, very focused on solving for the user, thinking about the user, and then you'll get the return. Now, as I was mentioning, the title of this presentation is related with trust. So I'll do a quick deep dive on user trust challenge for this presentation. Now, overall, trust is decreasing in the world, and it's a tough statement to hear. I think. Think about it from a personal perspective. Think about it from a politics perspective. Think about the world, right? From a business perspective, we've collected data from McKinsey, from Gartner, from Forrester, all of the big companies relating to the impact of trust within business, and we found something that it's determining, right? So first, 81% of users say that in the past year, they've become more concerned about how companies are using their data. 59% of consumers say that they're not confident that their privacy is being protected by companies whose services and products they use online. And most impactful is 48% of people globally have stopped buying or using services from a company due to privacy concern. That's 48%, right? And we connect this with the data that we have, right? And the data that we have is that around 70% of users actually click on accept on the consent banner, right? And when we depict that, it's funny because we get this graph, right? It's very straightforward. We get the 70%, which is the largest part of accept. Then you have a small part that it's deny, but you have a large part that it's the no action. So it's actually users that have not made a decision regarding their privacy settings. Now, 6 months ago, what we had in this presentation, the title was the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is no action. In reality, what we're seeing here at this moment and in 2023 is that the biggest opportunity is the no action, because you still have users that have not made a decision regarding the data privacy, and you have an opportunity to establish that connection with them, to show them that you're a trusty brand, and you're able to establish that relationship and trust. At the same time, we're also seeing that the biggest risk is actually on the complacency on the accept. So far, users were like regulation came in, users were shown a lot of cookie banners. There's a cookie banner fatigue in the world. So that 70% is not really 70%. That 70% has been pushed by the industry, right? And at some point, users will revise this. So any e-commerce brand that is not actively working on building that relationship, it's going to be impacted by that. Yep. Now, there is a very nice relationship between trust and privacy. And what we discovered is that there is an inverse proportional relationship between the two. And I think like once I said it should be obvious to you, but whenever there is less trust, there will be more willingness of privacy. And it goes the other way around. Where there is more trust, there would be less willingness of privacy. And where there's less willingness of privacy from a business perspective, it means that you will be able to have better data, more accurate data flowing into your particular business and establishing and building your business beyond other competitors that have a little different level of trust. Yep. Now, trust is very important for e-commerce, and I just wanted to put this example here of Amazon, right? Like famous case of Amazon, like why and how Amazon became this very large e-commerce player in the world. And it all comes down to that idea of users trusting that they can buy in that particular company, right? And that their data would be protected, and if there was an issue, they would be refunded. And why is it important? Because trust leads to repeated purchases. And if I mentioned that there's going to be an increase in acquisition cost, then the recurrent orders from a particular customer become very important for e-commerce businesses. Now, changing gears a little bit, how can we solve for trust? Think about three things: transparency, consent, and control. Transparency, I tell users what I'm doing and that they can really understand it. Consent, users act in an informed manner. And control, users have full control of their preferences. You solve for these variables, you generate trust. And this is a little bit the last message that I want to leave you today is there's two things that you should be doing is think about investing in a proper CMP that is able to help you with your consent options. And then how can you nurture the existing users and the existing relationships with and via giving them an opportunity to control those preferences. For the last part of the session, we'll go into a deep dive where we'll discuss specifically about preference and control, and we'll be able to have a very nice discussion with you in the next couple of minutes. Thank you very much.